तं देशिकेन्द्रं परमं पवित्रं विश्वस्य पालं मधुरं यतीन्द्रं हिताय नृणां नरमूर्तिमन्तं विवेक आनन्दमहं नमामि. Offering pranams at the lotus feet of Swami Vivekananda, I welcome you all to this most awaited and divine session by revered Swami Sarvapriyanandaji Maharaj. We shall start this wonderful day by Veda Ghosha. Veda Ghosha will be rendered by members of Vivekananda Balaka Sangha and Yuvaka Sangha.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sahana Vavato Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Atuna Indrakshumantan Chitranggrabham Sangrabhaya Mahahasti Dakshinena Vidmahitva Atu Vikurmintu Videshnantu Vimagham Tu Vimatramavo Obhihi Nahitva Ashura Devanamakta Asoditsantam Bhimannagam varayante yetonvindram stavamesha anam vashvasvarajam naradhasamardhishannaha prasto shradupagashishatsavatsamagiyamanam abhiradasa jugurat Ano o bharadakshine nabhisavye na pramrisha indramano vasor nirbhaak upakramasva bharadrishata drishno jananam ada ashustarasya vedah indraya unute asti vajo vipre bhissanitvaha Asmabhis satam sanuhi sadyo juvaste vaja asmabhyam vishvaschandrah vashaischa maksho jarante ganana antva ganapatigam havamahe havinkavinamupamasravastamam ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् निशुसीदगणपते गणेषु त्वामा आहुर्विप्रथमं कवीनां न ऋते त्वत्क्रियते किञ्चनारे महामर्कं मघवञ्चित्रमर्च अभिख्यानो भगवन्नादमानान् सखे बोधिवसुपते सखीनां रणं कृधिरणकृत्सत्यसुष्मा भक्ते चिदाबजाराये अस्मान् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ तत्सत् Shri Ramakrishnaarpanamastu.
I now request Dr. R. Balasubramaniam, Founder President, Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, for introduction and welcome address.
Namaste. Parma Puji Swami Nityanandaji Maharaj, Swami Sarvapriyanandaji Maharaj, all the monks of the Ramakrishna order, friends, well-wishers, members of the Vivekananda Youth Movement, and fellow travelers in the journey of building a resurgent India. I was walking around the campus this morning, and I went back 40 years. It was 1982, around the month of September, October, were the two intense months this ashram gave refuge to me. And the library behind was where I spent a lot of time pretending to read and understand Swami Vivekananda. I don't think any of us could ever claim that we have understood the extraordinary brilliance that Swamiji presents himself as, whether it's intellectual or spiritual brilliance. And coming full circle back to the ashram around 40 years later, to listen to Swami Sarvapriyanandaji Maharaj, who in this circles is seen as a new avatar of Swami Vivekananda himself. I think it's a great privilege for all of us here. Swamiji, a monk or the monastic member of the Ramakrishna order, is currently the head of the Vedanta Center of New York. Again, as several of you might know, that center was established by Swami Vivekananda himself. And for the last 5 years, I think if you have to really understand the positive use of, we all know in India today how YouTube is usually abused. And if we can stand out and say there is one constructive use of platforms like YouTube, it is Swamiji's speeches. So for me, every morning on the daily walk, if the walk is not complete without listening to some speech over and over again, and especially his explanation of Karma Yoga and the way it's presented in absorbable doses, and where we can actually try to unpack it a little bit in our minds. I think the credit of taking Vedanta to that space belongs to Swami Sarvapriyanandaji, and so it's a great honor for us that he'll be sharing his thoughts with all of us. Today in this audience, Swamiji are our staff members from across Karnataka. The Vivekananda Youth Movement completes 38 years. The 39th year starts on the 1st of December. It's always been privileged to be guided by the monks of the Ramakrishna order. Whether initial days, the institution would not be what it is today, but for the guidance, support, mentoring, and support in every form, right from the afternoon meal to the evening coffee to the money to go back to Brahmagiri. Swami Sureshanji would take care of everything. And so this Vivekananda Youth Movement not only draws inspiration from Swamiji's message, but it draws a lot along with inspiration from all the monks of the order, for which we are truly privileged. And today, I would now request Swami Sarvapriyanandaji to not only deliver his address, and he'll have some time to answer our questions also. Swamiji, I think the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
I now request revered Swami Nityanandaji Maharaj, revered Swami Sarvapriyanandaji Maharaj, Dr. R. Balasubramaniam sir to inaugurate the session by lighting the lamp of knowledge.
Swamiji, Bani.
I now request revered Swamiji to address the gathering.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sajjid Sukhaswarupaya Swami Netapaharine. Revered Swami Nityasthanji Maharaj, Revered Swami Atmavidananji Maharaj, other revered monks, respected Dr. R. Balasubramaniam ji. I think there's a little bit of an echo, right? You can maybe reduce the volume a little bit. You can all hear me, right? You can all hear me. Yes. Distinguished guests and members of the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, it's a great pleasure and a privilege to be here this morning with all of you. You know, when as you heard, I am in the Vedanta Society of New York, and that was established by Swami Vivekananda himself in 1894. He went to America in 1893 and attended the World Parliament of Religions, and afterwards New Yorkers, who are very enterprising people, they were the first to catch hold of him and come to New York and teach Vedanta, especially yoga. They are very interested in yoga. In fact, Swami Vivekananda's classic Raja Yoga was translated and first published in New York from the Vedanta Society of New York. Also Karma Yoga. In fact, much later, one of the greatest novelists of America, J.D. Salinger, he was, in fact, his famous book is there, Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye. And I had not read it, but when I heard how interested he was in the Vedanta movement, he was the disciple of Swami Nikhilanandaji. And recently Hollywood made a movie about him, J.D. Salinger. The movie is called Rebel in the Rye. And there they in the movie, I saw just one portion of it where they show Vedanta Society and Swami Nikhilananda. They have depicted it very nicely. So this J.D. Salinger, in fact, let me tell you a little more about him. That he was at one time America's leading novelist. He became so interested in Vedanta, but towards the end of his life, he decided, he was so inspired by the idea of Karma Yoga, that I will do something without asking for anything in return. So towards the last part of his life, many, many years, he withdrew from public life. He did not publish anything anymore, and he kept on writing. And in the movie they have shown, it's so touching, they have shown that the Salinger, he has withdrawn to a cottage, he's writing something, he's sitting down in front of Sri Guru Maharaj, Ma Sharda, Swami Vivekananda, photos are there, he's doing japa, and then he puts the japa mala down, he gets down and starts writing, and that's the end of the movie. Now this Salinger, he was also instrumental in spreading Vedanta in the West, and he writes in one place, these two classics, Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga, these two classics should be carried by our American youth in their pockets. They should keep these books in their pockets. There was a recent book, American Veda, by Phil Goldberg. So Phil Goldberg, he wrote, there's one chapter, the Swamis taught the smart guys and the smart guys taught the rest of us. So in that chapter, he talks about Salinger, he talks about Joseph Campbell, who was also a disciple of Swami Nikhilanandaji. He talks about Christopher Isherwood, who wrote that wonderful book on Ramakrishna and his disciples. Often in India also, many Swamis, when they want to recommend a book to somebody who knows English and does not have a good introduction yet to Ramakrishna Vivekananda, they recommend that book, Christopher Isherwood's book. It's so well written. It makes for wonderful reading. Though many people don't know what sacrifices these people had to make. Christopher Isherwood himself, because he wrote this book, the elite jet set. He was part of this very promising novelist. Then he was heavily criticized that he has become part of some Hindu cult. He has lost his marbles. But the interesting thing is, today people really remember Christopher Isherwood for Ramakrishna and his disciples. All his other novels are slowly being forgotten, going into the past. Then Aldous Huxley, another person, very well known, Perennial Philosophy, a wonderful book. Gerald Hurd was there. So all of these people. And Houston Smith, who can forget Houston Smith? He was very close to Swami Satprakashananda in the Vedanta Society of St. Louis. All of these, Phil Goldberg says, these are the smart guys. And the Swamis taught the smart guys, and the smart guys taught the rest of us. Now, in America, when people tell me that, where is this country going? This is a terrible condition in this country. Trump has come, this has happened, that has happened. I say, look, United States, when we look at it from a distance, I have come from India, from a distance when I look at it, it's a country which has sort of reached a plateau. It will become a little better sometimes, little worse sometimes, more or less it has reached a plateau. This is America. But if you go to India today, you will find a new India every 5 years. Literally, I had that experience. Because of many reasons, I was unable to visit India for 4.5 years. It is always visibly a new India. There is a new energy here. It's already the second largest nation on earth, and we are soon going to be the largest nation on earth in terms of population. Also, one of the youngest populations in the whole world. So tremendous youthful energy is there. Ambition is there. You might say greed and corruption also there, Swamiji. Plenty of problems all around. Yes, plenty of problems all around, admitted. Somebody said, Swami Vivekananda's dream of the future India, and what is there in India today? You see the condition. Would Swami Vivekananda be happy to see what is going on in India today? I tell you, he would be most happy. He would be very happy looking towards the future. What it is, what it was, what it is now, and what it is going to be in the future. He said, I see a new India rising, which will be more glorious than ever before and outshine all her past achievements and glories. And I believe what Vivekananda said, till now it has not been false. Everything has been borne out in history, in India and across the world. So that's going to happen. So it's a new India. Every 4 or 5 years you come, not just materially. There's tremendous material progress. You just have to look at Bangalore. I visited Bangalore with my parents when I was a little kid, and I can see the tremendous difference. Tremendous difference. And this change is sweeping across India. So not only in terms of material progress, but also in terms of attitudes, values. The new generation, next generation, the generation after that, they have a new idea of life, values, purpose of life. And they have their own problems also. It is good. Swami Vivekananda, when he came back here with Sister Nivedita on the ship, Sister Nivedita, who had heard about India but had not yet seen India, her first sight of India, the Indian coastline. So in her excited way, she went and told Swami Vivekananda, oh, Swamiji, how peaceful. And Swami Vivekananda scolded her and said, no, this is the peace of the grave. People are superstitious, people are starving, people are poverty-stricken, they are colonized, ruled by a colonial power. This is not peace, because people are helpless. So what Swami Vivekananda wanted was an awakening in India and a recognition of her own true greatness, and then progress, sweeping aside the accumulated dust and decay of past centuries. So that's what Swami Vivekananda actually did, and he accomplished it. If you just look at what Swami Vivekananda did, it was tremendous. In 10 years, from 1893 to 1902, within 10 years, he had accomplished his life's mission. And his life's mission is tremendous. On one hand, in the West, he says, as Buddha had a message to the East, I have a message for the West. He opened the doors of the West to the inflow of Eastern spirituality. The accumulated spiritual treasures of India, they flowed through the door called Vivekananda to America. And it has it started then. It's continuing till today. Any number of swamis, lamas, yogis, philosophers, all are flooding, are moving towards the West. They have been transmitting our accumulated spiritual treasures across, through America, across the world. It's a worldwide phenomenon. International Day of Yoga. So that's how it, it just shows how something like yoga is a worldwide phenomenon now. In fact, in America, I was giving an introductory talk on Hinduism to a class of American school children in Los Angeles. And one little boy, he stood up, when I mentioned yoga, he stood up and said, "Oh, you have yoga in India also." So that's how much it has become, popular and accepted across the world, especially in the United States and other places. That was one side of Swami Vivekananda's mission. The other side, one was this transfer, the flow of India's message to the West. Vedanta, yoga, everything. Ayurveda, various branches of Indian philosophy. Buddhism is so popular there. All of this has happened over the last 100 years. And the other side of his message was coming back to India and awakening India. If you see the lectures from Colombo to Almora, the series of lectures, you will note there's a difference in emphasis. There's one emphasis in the West, and there's another kind of emphasis here. Awakening his countrymen to a sense of the glory, the sense of their self first. Who are we? And looking back into the past, towards our glorious past, and excavating, mining the past for resources out of which we can build an ever more glorious future. So that's what Vivekananda did. In fact, Pandit Nehru himself remarks that in our generation, everybody read Vivekananda. All the freedom fighters, they were all inspired by Vivekananda. In fact, a historian says Vivekananda was the first, the unconscious father of Indian nationalism. He was the first to refer to himself consciously, deliberately, all the time as an Indian. Till that point, many of the national leaders, they were thinking of themselves as Bengali or Tamilian or Maharashtrian or Punjab. When they referred to Desh, country, they meant Bengal or Tamil Nadu or Punjab. But when Vivekananda spoke, he spoke for India. And right after Vivekananda, from that time onwards, if you see the writings of national leaders, thinkers, they begin to speak of themselves as Indians. So he is referred to as the unconscious father of Indian nationalism. He did not deliberately set out to do that, but he created this. And then the entire, almost immediately after Vivekananda, you see the upsurge in the Indian national movement, and which culminated in the freedom struggle, freedom of India, and the 75th year which we are observing now. Another interesting thing, just before I came, in New York, the biggest event in New York is called the New York Marathon. And it is organized by the Tata Consultancy, the TCS. It is a TCS event, and it has been organized for many years by Tata Consultancy. So I told Americans there, so people were standing there, so a huge arrangement is going on in Central Park, just across where we are in the ashram. So I told some Americans there, next I'm going from here to India, and I'll be visiting the city from which this organization has come, which is doing all this here in New York. That is Bangalore. And the connection with Vivekananda. See, Vivekananda sailing to United States for the World Parliament of Religions, and on that ship was Jamshedji Tata, a Parsi businessman, a Hindu monk. And on the ship, what are they discussing? Higher education in India. Swami Vivekananda emphasized the importance of scientific research and engineering in India in future. Years later, after Vivekananda had become very well known, Jamshedji writes to him, and that letter is still available. You can find it on the Tata website also, and also here in the Indian Institute of Science. Do you remember we had met, and you had mentioned that starting an institute which will be dedicated to scientific research, a pursuit of knowledge. I cannot think of any a better person, fit person to be the director of president of this institute than you. And I am seized of this idea of starting this institute very soon. Of course, Vivekananda did not have the time or opportunity to become the director of Tata Institute, but it happened. And it happened after a lot of struggle. We know this history, but we don't know the subsequent history. Vivekananda passed away, 4th of July 1902. Jamshedji Tata himself passed away. He had set aside money and the plan for this institute, but it did not happen. The British government refused. When they applied for starting this institute, the British government said, natives have no need for science. You're Indians, what do you need to do any scientific research? Not for you. Sister Nivedita stepped in and she fought long and hard with the British government, taking the appeal up to the British Parliament in London till they finally got permission to start this institute. So it was started years later. So that is the legacy of Vivekananda. And I tell them that from that institute were produced scientists and the future directors of engineering colleges, IITs. They went on to found these other institutes in India, which have generated this new generation of computers engineers, which have formed organizations like the Tata Consultancy, which is now running the New York Marathon. You see, the loop is complete. Yet in India, why is this? What was the problem which Vivekananda tried to solve? What was the swamp into which we had sunk and Vivekananda tried to pull us, and which we are still struggling to come out of? Swami Vivekananda said, the two great sins, national sins of India, because of which India sank, we are suffering even today. One is the oppression of the masses, and the second one is the neglect of women. He says, two great national sins of India. And he worked for reversing that. And I think over the last 100 years or so, we have made tremendous progress in this regard. I still remember, I have not yet started the talk. This is just introduction. I am going to get into the topic very soon. But I just want to tell you about one touching incident. Few years back in a city, I think it was in Indore, several years back in fact, one gentleman, he said something that really touched me. He said something about Vedanta, criticism, he said, and that really touched me. He said that, so this gentleman, let me tell you, he is running a school for children in the slum there in that city. Terrible condition. I went and visited it. And it's not uncommon. Such slums are there across all the big cities in India, everywhere. So he's running this school, several hundred kids, malnourished, without any access to any kind of good education. He's trying his best. So, and the Swamis there are also helping him. In a talk he said, in our quest to be gods, we forgot to be human. In our quest to be gods, we forgot to be human. Now, this is the theme which I'm going to talk about. The general idea was my responsibility towards society, but I'm going to talk about the philosophy behind this. What is this attempt to be gods? How did we forget to be human? And what did Vivekananda do at the deepest level, at the philosophical level? So I'll start there. This is the land of Vedanta. India, yes, but especially Karnataka. Here, the streams of Vedanta, they all mingle like a Triveni, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita. Here you have this Sringeri Pitha, the legacy of Adi Shankaracharya. This is the land where Sri Ramanuja spent so many years of his life. It's the land of Vishishtadvaita. And of course, this is the land of Dvaita Vedanta, Sri Madhvacharya, Udupi. So these great systems of Vedanta have their confluence here in Karnataka. And Vijayanagara kingdom itself, one of my favorite books in Vedanta, the Panchadashi, Sri Vidyaranya Swami was right here. So these thoughts, these tremendous, extraordinary systems of philosophy, without any compare, without any peer, to whatever little I have studied, the philosophical systems of the East and the West, there is very little across the world which can compare to systems, philosophical systems, as darshan, as philosophical systems, which can compare to not just Advaita Vedanta, goes without saying, but also Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita Vedanta. I was in Singapore recently. I transited through Singapore. There our Ramakrishna ashram was established before the Second World War, I think 1938 or something. During Second World War, Netaji Subhas Bose used to visit that ashram, and he would meditate in different building, but not the new building. He would meditate there. In Subhas Bose's writings I find a very interesting comment. Adi Shankaracharya is fascinating, but it's very difficult for me to grasp it and make it practical. I am more attracted to the teachings of Sri Ramanujacharya. Who is saying that? Subhash Chandra Bose. So, it's not just Subhash Bose. Generations of thinkers, leaders, not just philosophers, in India and abroad have been inspired. One unknown example, let me tell you. In England, there was one philosopher, not so well known, Timothy Sprigg. He was one of the last great idealists. So idealism in philosophy is sort of out of fashion. But I was so surprised to find and very happy to find this philosopher who is absolutely committed to the idea that consciousness is the ultimate reality. And modern philosopher. He passed away just recently, a few years ago. So I was reading his works. Nowhere, he generally, once in a while he mentions Vedanta, just a little bit, but probably he feels hesitant because it's not his field. But he talks about the great idealist philosophers of Europe and England, whether it's Berkeley or Kant or Hegel or whoever. I was curious, and I asked one professor, Professor Arindam Chakravarti, who teaches Indian philosophy at Hawaii, "Sir, did you know this philosopher?" He said, "Yeah, I knew him very well. I have met him, he visited India, and Swamiji, you'll be happy to know he was an absolute fan of Shankara." So this is very interesting. Even recently I had the occasion of having a dialogue with one of the leading philosophers in the world today. If you in fact Google living philosophers, if you just Google top philosophers, you will get Socrates and Plato and Kant. But philosophers today in the world, in the English analytic tradition, David Chalmers is probably the top philosopher of mind in the world today. So we had a dialogue about his latest book, Reality Plus. There he liberally, first thing I tried to see in the book, how much he is mentioning, acknowledging the contributions of Indian philosophy. Liberally, he talks about Shankara, about Advaita, about Sankhya, about the Buddhist philosophers, Vasubandhu, the Buddhist Vijnanavad philosophers. There's a nice little cartoon. You know the story of Vishnu showing Maya to Narada. Narada had asked that, "I want to see what is Maya," and that whole story is there. So in that book there's a cartoon. Vishnu and Narada are standing there, Vishnu is showing. And the whole book is about, you know what? Virtual reality. So these ideas are tremendous. There is no parallel. One of the greatest philosophers of 20th century, Indian philosophers, Professor J.N. Mahanti, is very ill now, but I think he's still alive, but very ill. A master of both Eastern and Western philosophy. I still remember, unforgettable, one day after a seminar in the Institute of Culture in Calcutta, over tea, he told me, "Swami, in all my studies of Eastern and Western philosophy and religion, I have not come across a more profound sentence than the first sentence of the Adhyasa Bhashya of Shankaracharya." So this is the citadel of Vedanta, and a great amount of work was done here in this land of Karnataka. Now, centuries of fighting. See, we talk about harmony. There wasn't much harmony there, but the kind of fighting that went on was not fighting with swords or guns and all. It was an intellectual combat. Will Durant says, gladiatorial combat between great masters of different philosophical systems. India developed this system of Vada. So there were these two great periods of conflict in philosophy, which led to the development of philosophy. The first great period of conflict in Indian philosophy was the 1,000-year conflict between Buddhism and the Hindu systems. The Buddhists denied the existence of God, denied the existence of a separate permanent Atma. And the Hindu systems, especially the dualistic systems, the Nyaya, the Sankhya, they fought back to defend the concept of Atman, concept of Ishvara, Sankhya, Nyaya, Purva Mimamsa, and others. So, especially the Naiyayikas. 1,000 years they fought, and if you are interested in knowing who won the battle, it depends on who you ask. If you ask us, we won the battle. If you ask the Buddhists, they say we have won the battle. They have stories from the Buddhist side. We don't know. Shankara debated with one of the great Buddhist philosophers, and then he lost the debate and he committed suicide. So such stories are there. So on both sides. Now, but if you ask me, the real winner was Indian philosophy. There's tremendous development on both sides, Buddhist and Hindu sides, a sheer sophistication in metaphysics and logic and language, all of that developed. Then the next great battle was fought here. Advaita Vedanta increasingly came under attack from the schools of Vishishtadvaita, from Dvaita Vedanta. Very sophisticated dialectical combat for about 500, 600 years. Some of the books, Advaita, Siddhi, Nyayamrita, somebody said you'll fry your brain, don't read those books. Short circuit your brain if you read those books. Tremendous works of philosophical dialectical debate. What Swami Vivekananda did, he was taking a cue from Sri Ramakrishna, of course it was a teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, is that he showed that Advaita, Vishishtadvaita and Dvaita are fundamentally not in conflict. They are developments of a single line of thought, and it has to be, because they are all based on the same texts, the same Upanishads, same Bhagavad Gita, same Brahma Sutras. They are a single line of development of Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita and other schools of Vedanta. In fact, what Swami Vivekananda did here, the best thing to read, Sister Nivedita, when she introduces Swami Vivekananda's complete works, in the first, just 3 or 4 pages, very powerful. One of the best ways of understanding Swami Vivekananda is to read the introduction to the complete works written by Sister Nivedita. There she mentions this. Vedanta, what it was the problem, what Vivekananda did for Vedanta, and what is the consequence. What is the connection to all this? The connection is the consequence of this is what we are seeing here. This entire group of young people sitting here, the motivation, why they are doing what they are doing, the importance of that, and the philosophy behind that, and the connection to the ancient Vedantic systems. This is what Nivedita brings out. Let me read out a few lines from Nivedita. This is from her introduction. She says that Vivekananda added to Hinduism. Before that she says, see, all those things which Vivekananda taught, they're all there in Hinduism. If Vivekananda had not come, none of those things would have been missed because they were already there from ancient times onwards. It's not that he added anything new to it. But then she goes on to say, it is not entirely true that he did not add anything new. What did he add which is new and which is relevant, which is absolutely central and which can explain what is happening here, which can explain this organization, why we are standing here, what we are trying to do, and the importance for the future of India. She says, this statement that his teaching holds nothing new is not absolutely true. It must never be forgotten. It was Swami Vivekananda who proclaimed Advaita Vedanta philosophy, sovereignty, the tremendous, the greatness of Advaita Vedanta, but also added to Hinduism the doctrine that Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita are but 3 phases or stages in a single development. This is part and parcel. Now she goes on. She makes a remarkable statement here. Something that explains, is a master key to understanding Vivekananda, is a master key to understanding complete works of Vivekananda. This is part and parcel of the still greater and more simple doctrine that the many and the one are the same reality, perceived by the mind at different times and in different attitudes. Or as Sri Ramakrishna expressed it, God is both with form and without form, and He is that which includes both form and formlessness. Then Nivedita goes on to say, it is this which adds the crowning significance to Swami Vivekananda's life. Of all the teachings, it is this teaching that the many and the one are the same reality. This is the crowning significance of Vivekananda's life, because for here he becomes the meeting point not only of East and West, America and India, but also of past and future. If the many and the one be indeed the same reality, then it is not all modes of worship alone, but equally all modes of work, all modes of struggle, all modes of creation, which are paths of realization. No distinction henceforth between sacred and secular. To labor is to pray, to conquer is to renounce. Life is itself religion. All of life is religion. To have and hold is as stern a trust as to quit and to avoid. This is the realization which makes Vivekananda the great preacher of karma, not as divorced from, but expressing jnana and bhakti. Karma expresses jnana and bhakti. To him, to Vivekananda, workshop, study, farmyard, field are as true and fit scenes for the meeting of God with man as the cell of a monk or the door of the temple. To him, there is no difference between service of man and worship of God, between manliness and faith, between true righteousness and spirituality. And here Nivedita comments, all his words, all the words of Vivekananda can be read as a commentary upon this central conviction. Masterful. In fact, what I will say now sort of builds upon what she has just said. She says all of this, all of the complete works of Vivekananda, 9 volumes now. But if you want to understand the essence of it, you have to take this master key. Dr. Balasubramaniam was just saying how he spent 2 months here reading the complete works of Vivekananda. He said, I was pretending to read it, but clearly a young boy, 2 months regularly, hours and hours of reading Vivekananda, at least you must have liked it. He says, I did not understand much, but I must have liked it. Something there pulled me. Similarly, I had a similar experience. As I became a monk, after that I started reading Vivekananda again, but I had read Vivekananda when I was a kid. My parents were devotees, so the Vivekananda's books were in the house. So when I was a school kid, in class 7, 8, at that time I was reading Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga. And as a brahmachari, when I was reading it all over again, I thought, I was telling one of my friends, another monk, I read all this as a kid, most of it, not all of it. Now I see I did not understand anything. What did I understand then? I really did not understand anything. Now only I am beginning to understand a little. Then that monk said something very precious. He said, in Hindi he told me, he said, नहीं, वो जो आपको अच्छा लगा था, वही असली बात है. That you liked it when you were reading. This message pulled you. You liked this message. That is the essential thing. That's why you have become a monk today. That's why you are leading a spiritual life today. This, what you are saying, I am beginning to understand it now. This understanding will go on, will become deeper and deeper. 10 years, 20 years later, you will feel what I understood when I was a brahmachari. Now I understand more. 40 years later, you will say, what did I understand when I was a young monk? Now I understand more. This will go on, will become more deeper and deeper. But that which pulled you, you liked it. I was reading Swami Subodhanandaji says in one place that Sri Ramakrishna mentioned those who like the teachings of this place. Sri Ramakrishna would often talk about himself as this place. Those who like the teachings of this place, they belong here. And then another statement Sri Ramakrishna has made, that those who belong here, this is their last birth. Look at the connection. Those who come here, it's the last birth, they belong to me. But how do I know if I have really come here? Is it just coming to Ramakrishna Math? How do I know I belong to Sri Ramakrishna? He says, if you like what I say, if it pulls you. It pulls us. That's why we have come here. Now, what does Vivekananda say? One and the many are the same reality. Very interesting, short description. All of philosophy can be understood as the relationship between the one and the many. What is the one and the many? One is ultimate reality, Brahman, Atman, God, whatever you call it. Many means this world, the world of multiplicity. So many human beings are there, non-human living beings are there. This vast world of planets and stars is there. The tiny world of atoms and molecules and the tremendously huge cosmos. All of it is there. This is the many. Now spirituality, Vedanta, these philosophies, they seek for what is the ultimate reality behind all of this. Here also, very interesting, there are two kinds of philosophical investigation. One is called a descriptive metaphysics, and another one is a revisionary metaphysics. The descriptive metaphysics is, this is real and I want to describe this. That's it, and then finish. The revisionary metaphysics is that this is not real. There is an ultimate reality. This is a superficial, surface level reality. And now I want to investigate this reality and find out an ultimate reality. So Vedanta might be that second kind of metaphysics. It wants to say, this is not real. There is a higher or deeper reality. That reality we will call the one. Now all these philosophies, they have different ways of one and many. The Charvaka, the materialist, comes and says, there is no one ultimate reality. This, what you see here, what you experience here, this is the ultimate reality. What we are experiencing in this world, what sense experience, whatever we can do with our instruments, what it reveals, this cosmos is the only reality that exists. What is the consequence of this philosophy? What is that? Yavad jivet sukham jivet, rinam kritva grisam pivet. Live, as long as you live happily, merrily, drink lot of ghee. Why ghee? That was top 10 drinks like Pepsi and Coca-Cola in those days. But it is expensive. Borrow money. Borrow money, you will get into debt. No problem, because there is no ultimate reality. After this body dies, Bhasmi Bhuta, it will be burnt. Who will come to collect the debt? You are not there anymore. And we may say that, oh, what sort of silly philosophy is this? It is the dominant philosophy of the world through the centuries and now also. I live in Manhattan, very close, Wall Street. When last Wall Street crash came, which sunk the economy, out of which the economy is just recovering last few years only. They said it was the greed in Wall Street which led to the Wall Street crash. And you know what is the formula? The greed. What they used to say, the traders who created this chaos. And they artificially boosted up housing prices, there was the stock values, and then the housing crash came, and then the stock market crashed and all of that. What is that philosophy? You will be surprised to know. It is called IBG, YBG. IBG, YBG is what is that? I will be gone, you will be gone. Let us make money. And they made money, millions and millions of dollars. Some were jailed, but some escaped. And other poor people or middle class people, they lost their savings. Many people were hurt by that crash. But these fellows, IBG, YBG. Yavad jivet, sukham jivet. And after the death of the body, nobody can catch you. So this is a philosophy. This is common. Somebody came to me in Silicon Valley today. The biggest problem is what? Two problems. YOLO and FOMO. What is FOMO? Yesterday in RV University, one boy asked. Our problem is FOMO. Parents, earlier generation, see what is this FOMO, newfangled term? Fear of missing out. FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out. And YOLO, you live only once. 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the Charvaka would have said, correct. You are a right follower of my philosophy. You live only once. Therefore, whatever you can do right now, sukham jivet. So this is the consequence of saying many is the only reality. There is no other ultimate reality. This is it. Disastrous for society, disastrous for personal life. Then there comes some development of spirituality. The intuition that there is a higher reality. There is this reality, but apart from this, separated from this, a higher, more worthwhile reality is this. The presence of God is felt. Revered Swami SVYM, who was here, he has drawn these beautiful diagrams. One diagram is a fellow who is standing, there is nothing, doubtful. Any ultimate reality is there, God is there, doesn't know. Next diagram is that fellow is standing, one big circle is there. The presence of God feels. There is an ultimate reality, one, and the many. So here is the many and there is one. This is the intuition behind Dvaita Vedanta. That ultimate reality, Brahman, God, Ishvara, Bhagavan exists. And that is the solution of human life. Swami Vivekananda, when he went to the West, here also in the West, he would teach Vedanta starting with that wonderful proclamation. Shrinvantu vishve amritasya putraha aye dhamani divyani tastu vedaham purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasah parastat. Listen, ye children of immortal bliss, even those who are in heavens, the gods, you also do not know this message. Listen, I have known that infinite being. There is an infinite reality. Beyond this limited reality, there is an infinite reality. I have known it. What is it like? Aditya Varnam, blazing forth like the sun, not with a material light, with the light of consciousness. This infinite reality exists and it is forever beyond darkness. We are in darkness. We suffer. We have misery, we have poverty, we have ill health, we have COVID, we have economic crashes, we have clashes among each other, and death is there. This is darkness of samsara. We go from one samsara to another. This is the Indian idea, the common thing which we hold in across all schools of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. It's not one lifetime. We are born again into a new lifetime, and that's not good news. Because we repeat it again and again. Mrityu sa mrityum apnoti. From death to death we are going. This is darkness. I saw a cartoon once. In America there's a group of Christians called born again Christians. So he's talking to an Indian guy, and says, I am a born again Christian. And the Indian guy is saying, I am a born again and again and again Hindu. So this is the problem, and the solution is this God exists. Purusham Mahantam, infinite being. And if you realize this God, tameva viditva ati mrityumeti. By realizing this God, this one goes beyond death, beyond suffering, beyond limitation. Any other way? Science, technology, Wall Street, something, money, social reform, that will give us immortality? No. Nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other way. God realization is the only goal and is the only way of overcoming suffering, going beyond darkness. So this is, you feel the presence of the one. This is dualistic approach. Then you investigate further. Is it really true that this one infinite reality and this world are separate? They are separate? No. Actually, this big circle, then Yatishwanji Maharaj draws the big circle, and that fellow is now inside the big circle. That there is one integral divine reality and we are parts of it. This was the interpretation of Sri Ramanujacharya. Shesha Sheshi, Amsha Amshi, we are all parts. Just like this body is there, it's one reality. Hands are not the feet. Feet are not the tummy is not the head, they are distinct from each other, but they are all part of one organic unity. And this one organic unity constitutes my body as this person. Similarly, the entire universe is one divine organic unity. It constitutes the body of God, so to speak. Then one and the many, what happens? The one and the many are there. The many is a part of the one. The one alone exists. The many is part of the one. It constitutes the body of the one, so to say, within quotes. We are all part of Brahman, not separate. Then comes Advaita Vedanta, and it says that the one and the many, the many is an appearance, and the one alone exists. And Swami Yatishwanji there draws this circle in which that one person has now become an outline, a faded, dotted outline, and the big circle alone exists. Brahman, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahmaivanapara. This one is the ultimate reality. And this world is an appearance. Appearance of what? Appearance of that ultimate reality. One alone is appearing as this world. And who are we? We are that one reality. We are Brahman. Shankaracharya sings, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Mahavakya says, Tattvamasi. The disciple realizes, Aham Brahmasmi. I am that one reality. Then what is all this? It's an appearance of that one. And this body, individuality, that's an appearance of that one. All of this is not part of that one. All of this is not separate from that one. It is that one alone, one Brahman alone, Ekameva Dvitiyam, one alone appearing as many. Actually, even when it is appearing as many, there is no second reality. There is only one reality there. In the ocean out there, in the Bay of Bengal, if you look, thousands and thousands of waves are arising every moment. But if you look at it from the perspective of water, if you try to count the waves, useless occupation, don't do that. But if you try to count the waves, you'll see thousands, you keep on counting. But if you count water, do you need to count the waves anymore? No. The water is the one thing that there is there, even if it is appearing and disappearing in thousands of waves. So, the one is the only reality, the many are appearances of the one. Now, you go further. Sister Nivedita says, a simpler and greater truth. If some of you have been listening to Swami Medhananda Ayan Maharaj's talks on Vijnana Vedanta, it is this clue he has taken, and in many other ways, he has two extraordinarily important, significant works of great academic value and also of interest to us as followers of Ramakrishna Vivekananda Sharada. The first book was Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality on Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy. The second one is the new one, Swami Vivekananda's Vedantic Cosmopolitanism. So there he takes up from this idea that the one and the many are the same reality. Not that one and the many, Brahman and this world are separate. Not even that Brahman is one and they all are parts of Brahman. Not even that Brahman is the only thing, everything else is an appearance, mithya. Rather, there is only one thing. And that alone is experienced as all of this. Is it a rejection of Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Advaita? Not at all. It would be rather a completion of it. The same stream of thought that comes through the dualistic idea, one and the many are both there. And then the Vishishtadvaitic idea, the one is there, many are parts of the one. Then the Advaitic idea, the one alone exists and the many are appearances of the one. And the completion is the one alone is there. This is the Vijnana framework. Sri Ramakrishna describes it very simply. You climb up a house, you go through the door, you climb the stairs and you reach the roof. When you reach the roof, you see the materials out of which the roof is made, the cement, the bricks, the mortar. And then you look back, whatever you had left behind, the staircase and the door and all, the same wood, bricks, mortar, cement, it's made of the same thing. One rises to Brahman as Neti Neti and realizes Aham Brahmasmi. But then one looks back, all of that which I had done Neti Neti. When Shankaracharya sings, Mano Buddhi Ahankara Chittani Naham, I am not mind, intellect, memory, ego. I am not the body, I am not the world made of the five elements. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. Now added to that, one step further. After this realization also, after all, the world still appears. Now what is this world? It is that same Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. It is now appearing as mind and body and external world. It's not that the Advaita masters did not know this. They knew it very well. But the stress was not on that. The stress was always on one. What is the many? Appearance. It's one. They knew that whatever is appearing is nothing other than Brahman. One sadhu in Uttarakhand, so precisely they understand these things. And they said, Drig Drishya Viveka, the distinction between the seer and the seen. What do we do? Some of you must have heard the talks, read the book. I am not the body, not the mind. The body and the mind, and these are all seen, drishya. I am the drashta. Drashta is always separate from drishya. See, I am the drashta of this paper. So the eyes are seeing, the paper is seen, the paper is separate from the eyes. Whatever the eyes can see is separate from the eyes. The eyes are separate from that. Drashta is always separate from drishya. In fact, the only thing that the eyes cannot see are the eyes themselves. Swami, have you never looked in a mirror? Have you never taken a selfie? Mirror and selfie, mirror is a reflection of these eyes. Selfie is a picture of these eyes. The way these eyes directly see something, that way they cannot directly see themselves. Drashta must be always distinct from the drishya. Otherwise it cannot be a drishya. But this is a very powerful analytical tool which Vedanta uses to show we are not the body, not the mind. We are this witness consciousness, Sakshi. First verse, again Vidyaranya Swami. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik, tad drishyam driktu manasam, drishyadhivrittaya sakshi, drigevanatu drishyate. Eyes are the seer, forms are seen. Eyes are separate from the forms. Eyes are seen, mind is the seer. So the mind must be separate from the eyes. Mind is also seen. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, we experience it. Therefore, I, the consciousness, am the seer, am the witness, Sakshi. And Sakshi must be separate from the mind. And this Sakshi I am, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. First verse, in one verse, they have already gone beyond the limits of modern consciousness studies. What insight! I mean, just one example. Consciousness and matter, what is the relationship? This whole hard problem of consciousness. We are discussing, it's a big thing which is going on. Latest topic to be discussed in consciousness studies. One sadhu in Uttarakhand, they don't speak English, in Hindi. He simply said, Chetan or Jad? Chetan, consciousness. Jada, non-conscious objects, insentient. What are the options? Jad say Chetan. From the material world, consciousness has come. Who says? Charvaka. Chetan se Jad. From consciousness has come this material world. Who says? All theistic religions, anybody who believes in God, what do they believe? God created this universe. If God created this universe, that God, your God is conscious or unconscious? Everybody said, of course our God is conscious. So consciousness created this universe. Second option. First was from Jada to Chetan. Matter generates consciousness. That is mainstream modern physiology science that they want to say that, not proved. The second approach is the religious approach. Consciousness generates the material world. Chetan se Jad. The third thing he said was, Jad or Chetan, he says parallel. They are all existing together. Who says that? Sankhya. Consciousness and matter, Purusha Prakriti, both are real. And both are parallel. Not one has come from the other. Both are interacting and real. David Chalmers, whom I mentioned, the leading philosopher of mind in the world today, he is now propounding a theory called panpsychism, which is saying consciousness is a fundamental reality of this universe. Material universe and consciousness is also a fundamental reality. You cannot reduce one to the other. Kapila said this 5,000 years ago. Purusha Prakriti. Sankhya. Then that sadhu said, Jad or Chetan, dono hi shunya. Who says this? Nagarjuna, 2000 years ago. Neighboring state, Andhra. Both the observer and the observed, they depend on each other. By his great follower Chandrakirti, he uses an example which you don't find in Vedanta. He says, what is this subject and object like? He doesn't say drashta drishya. He says, like sheaves of hay. Bales of hay, they're tied together and they're leaning against each other. If you remove one, the other will fall. Without drishya, you cannot think of a drashta. Without drashta, there's no question of drishya. They fall, both are shunya. So, both are shunya. And then finally he comes to the fifth option. Which were the first four? I forget. From Jada to Chetana, first one, materialism. From Chetana to Jada, second one, religion, theistic religion, dualistic religion. Chetana and Jada both are existing parallel, Sankhya and latest modern panpsychism. Fourth one, the Madhyamaka Buddhism of Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti and all, which is the foundation of modern Tibetan Buddhism, Dalai Lama and his followers, which is most popular across the world today. Both are shunya, both are empty. Fifth one, Advaita Vedanta says. The Chaitana is the reality and Jada is the appearance of Chaitana. Chaitana is the one reality and Jada appears as its own object. That sadhu put it very nicely. This drashta and drishya separation. He says, ये तो ठीक है कि दृष्टा दृश्य से अलग है. It's true, you're right. Drashta, the witness, is different from the witnessed, the object. Then he says, कभी आपने सोचा है क्या दृश्य दृष्टा से अलग है? The object, is it different from the drashta? I, the witness, am different from the witnessed object, the world, body, mind. But then now you ask, the witnessed object, world, body, mind, is it different from you? We'll say, what a strange thing. If one is different from the other must be different from the first one. If A is different from B, B must be different from A, isn't it? This is one object. It is different from this object. So this object is also different from this. This is one case. But what about this case? This podium. There are two things here. The podium and the wood out of which it is made. But are there really two things? The wood is different from the podium. How? Before it was a podium, it was a log of wood. Before that, it was in a tree. One day the podium will be damaged or destroyed, it will still be wood. So podium and wood are not literally the same. The wood exists apart from the podium. It can. But can the podium exist apart from the wood? Even right now, when I touch, what do I say? Touch wood. We don't say touch podium, touch wood. We know it is wood only. Similarly, that sadhu said, Drashta kya drishya se alag hai. You are witness consciousness, not the world, not the body, not the prana, not the mind. Panchakosha, viveka, avasthatra, sakshi, all of this we say. But all of those things are nothing but you. This is the great Advaitic idea. They knew this, but their emphasis was on the one. Satchidananda Brahma, Sakshi, consciousness, and not on the many. But they knew that the many is nothing but the one. The one only is appearing as the many. Emphasis shifted from one to the many in Vivekananda. Sri Ramakrishna, then Vivekananda. That's what Sister Nivedita says. She understands all of this in just an instant. And she says, this is the crowning significance. This is why she says that not only is this the meeting point of East and West, is also the meeting point of past and future. So all this I was saying not just for the fun of philosophy. I enjoy philosophy, but there is a great relevance here. How is it meeting point of East and West? 100 years ago, Vivekananda said, India, the lifeblood of India is religion, spirituality. People, if you ask a farmer here, they will not know anything about politics. But if you ask them about religion, they will give you a lecture on religion. In America, he says it's all about society. Now today, scholars, intellectuals will sniff at it, say, oh, this reeks of essentialism. You're reducing Eastern culture to only spirituality. You're reducing Western world to only social development. Oh, this is too simplistic. They are fools. Anybody who travels back and forth, even today in the 21st century, when both of these worlds have come much closer together, you will still see the difference. You'll still see the difference. One example I will give you, what struck me. I was at the Harvard Divinity School, at Harvard University for a year, and studied different texts. Also, we had a course on Christian texts, and different courses. One thing I noticed, it's an institute within Harvard University which is meant for the study of religion and philosophy, especially religion and spirituality. And you know what is the thrust everybody is busy about? Everybody in that institute, especially the young people, students. They are interested, you're thinking, oh, religion, drashta, drishya, consciousness, God, Brahman, heaven. No, no, no. Immigration, abortion, gender, race, economic inequality. What can religion and spirituality do for these problems of American society? Those are the issues. You're looking puzzled. But they are not puzzled. The idea there is unquestioned. It is we from this distance, when we look at it from a distance, we begin to see, oh, this is what they have reduced religion to. Nothing wrong, because it's a good thing. But good is often the enemy of the great. Somebody wrote a book, Good is the Enemy of the Great. I mentioned it in a class, not a popular remark. They did not like it. I said, look, all of this is great and it should be done. This is something that is, religion, spirituality should be of use to society. But the goal of spirituality, the goal of religion is not society. The goal of society is spirituality. This idea is not there. Everything for them, in the United States, it is unquestioned. The goal of everything is a better society. Why? What else? Religion is there for better society. Economics is there for better society. Politics is there for better society. What else is religion there for? Spirituality there for? If you try to explain, no, God, realization, enlightenment, they'll scratch their heads. Oh, outdated things. Come 21st century, society. So what Vivekananda saw more than 100 years ago, that is true. It's the lifeblood of Western civilization. It is their strength. It is their greatness. It is their power. But I pointed out, it was not always so. So we had a very beautiful class, Christian contemplative prayer. There was this professor, Stephanie Paulsell, very good, wonderful teacher. So she selected 6 books, 3 from ancient Christianity, 1 book written just after in the time of the Desert Fathers, another one, the Dark Night of the Soul, and the third one, Interior Castle of Saint Teresa. So ancient and medieval Christian texts, and 3 modern texts, one by Howard Thompson, one by Thomas Merton, another by Simone Weil. I said, notice, in the 3 ancient texts, it is all about God, Jesus, prayer, surrender, faith. At no time are they talking about how to overthrow the Roman emperor or how to change this. At that time, in Saint Teresa's time, slave trade was starting. She never mentions it. Many weren't there bad things in society at that time? Slavery was common in the Mediterranean region at that time. What does the Bible say about about slavery? Very bad, revolution, abolish. No. How strange. The professor pointed out, how strange. The Bible says master should be a good master, slave should be a good slave. That is the teaching. Today we will laugh at this. But they are right. The idea was spirituality at that time. And society has evolved. Now, we all say, and the Christian teacher also will say, slavery is bad, it should be abolished. But the goal of Christianity was not to abolish slavery or to reform the economy or to help in immigration, border control. No. That was not the central goal. Society is for spiritual realization. Spiritual realization is not for society. Contrast that with India. In Taittiriya Upanishad Bhashya, there is one place, Asad Brahma iti Veda Ched. Suppose Brahman does not exist, suppose the one does not exist, God does not exist, suppose Shankaracharya raises this Purva Paksha, then what happens? He says, then the entire society, Varnashrama system, and at that time whatever system was there, becomes meaningless. Why? Society becomes meaningless, civilization becomes meaningless. Shankaracharya says this. Why? He says, Brahma pratipatti artham tesha. The entire human effort, civilization, society, education, whatever we are doing in life is ultimately all meant for realization of Brahman. This whole human struggle is for spiritual realization. That's what we are all struggling for, whether we admit it or not. This is the Indian viewpoint. Now, there is danger in both viewpoints. I am coming to the point. I have still got a little bit of time. Yes. Yeah. Some people are looking back, how much time he will take. When will he come to the point? I promise I'll come to the point in the next 2 or 3 minutes. There is danger in both viewpoints. The danger in what I saw at the Harvard Divinity School, that wonderful approach. All enthusiastic young men and women who are all to take their theological learning and reform society. I will remove racism from society. I will, remove the atrocities on immigrants. Or some are for abortion, some are against abortion. We will not even discuss these topics in our spiritual talks. But there is a very interesting story. Swami Madhavanandaji had gone to New York at that time in 1960s. I think there was some brain operation he had to have done, and he was in the New York, the East Side Center, Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center, Swami Nikhilanandaji. And so there is a nice reminiscence about it. This young man who was helping Madhavanji for physiotherapy after brain operation. Madhavanji was the president of the order at that time. And he says, in one corner, the American men and women in the ashram, hot debate is going on. Because at that time, for the first time, this birth control pills had been introduced. And many were for it, many were against it. Fierce debate is going on. They thought Swami will not be interested in these things. So they are not. From there, he says, Madhavanji said, I am for birth control. They said, Swami, you are interested in these topics? You know anything about it? You're interested? Swami Madhavanji said, yes, I am for birth control. No birth, no death. That is the whole point of Vedanta. You must go beyond these limited existences. So he took a Vedantic approach to it. So danger in the Western approach is you lose the spiritual kernel, the core of it all. And now coming to our topic, the danger in our approach is that you lose sight of society. Over a long period of time, when this overwhelming focus on the one, forgetting that the many are also expressions of the one, the same divinity you are worshipping, loving, trying to realize, Aham Brahmasmi, is also all this. Swami Akhandanandaji, when he was working, he started some work in Murshidabad. A great supporter, friend, great scholar, Pramadadas Mitra, Pandit from Benares, he wrote a sharp criticism. He said, you monks, followers of Vivekananda, what is this you are doing? You should live on Bhiksha, do meditation, teach a little Vedanta to people. That's it. Work for your own liberation. What is all this school, college, relief? What is all this? This is not your job. Then Akhandanji wrote back a fiery reply. He says, that Brahman, which you and I are both trying to realize, is wandering, starving, naked, sick on the streets here in front of my eyes. Same Brahman. Does your philosophy deny it? No. To serve this Brahman, I will give up moksha. I will go to hell if necessary. I will come and take birth 100 times, 1,000 times to serve Brahman in this, as Vivekananda said, my God the poor, my God the wicked, my God the illiterate, my God the hungry and the sick. It's not rhetoric. It is fully supported by Vedanta, especially when you extend it in the Vijnana Vedanta sense. When that gentleman had told, it struck me so deeply. He said, in our quest to be gods, we forgot to be human. Just as there is the weakness of forgetting spirituality, but they have the advantage of taking care of society. And society is strong and well developed. Spirituality, religion is strong and well developed throughout ages in India and continues to be now and will be so. But because of this new emphasis that the one alone is appearing as the many, Sister Nivedita says, now Vivekananda is meeting point of East and West. What we are doing here today and what we are doing Harvard Divinity School, it is the meeting point here. Vivekananda is the meeting point. God and society, one and the many, are the same reality. Atmano mokshartham jagat hitaya cha. We often debate for your own liberation and for the welfare of the world. What is this and? Why this and? As sadhus, we often feel it is too much work. I am not getting time for study and meditation. I have come for moksha, liberation. So ignore this. And I remember when I was a student, a professor in my institute, when I asked him, I was very interested in Ramakrishna Mission. I asked him, sir, what do you think of Ramakrishna Mission? And he said, oh, they do very good work, but there are some peculiarities. This God and Gerua they put on, why unnecessarily these two? So the good work they are doing, that is good. So why this and? This and is an expression of that one and the many are the same reality. That moksha which you are seeking, Atmano mokshartham, and this jagat which you are serving, they are not two different things. Swami Ranganathanji put it so beautifully. He said, what is spirituality? When I close my eyes, I find peace within. When I open my eyes, my attitude is, what can I do for you? Close my eyes, I find peace within. Open my eyes, what can I do for you? See, this is just the reverse of the worldly attitude. Close my eyes, so much disturbance. Open my eyes, what can I get from you? So, and this idea always was there. The great masters always knew this. Thousands of years ago, before Vivekananda, Jesus Christ says in the Bible, when they asked him, what is the most important commandment? For this we have to know Jewish history. We have all heard of 10 commandments because one Hollywood movie was there. But a rabbi told me there are 560 commandments in Judaism. So naturally the question will be, which is the most important one? So they asked Jesus, which is the most important commandment? Because he was regarded as a Jewish rabbi. So rabbi, which is the most important commandment? He said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy might. Love God with all your heart. So they must have noted, yes, good. They were closing their notebooks and Jesus said, and one more. He says, and love thy neighbor. So it's not two things, it's actually the same thing. That if you love God and love your neighbor, it is the same reality which you can understand from this. One and the many are the same reality. Again, thousands of years before Jesus Christ and beginning of Christianity, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, the essence, simplest instruction, Mam anusmara yudhya cha. Again that cha and has come. What should I do, he asked. And Krishna said, contemplate me, meditate upon me, be centered in God and fight the battle of life. Wherever you are, you fight the battle of life. Same and for thousands of years. It is that, again Nivedita is saying, one and the many are the same reality. So this is the point that I wanted to make here. I'm sorry for this sweeping global survey of philosophy. But it is true. Behind what we are doing, the responsibility towards society is this tremendous revolution in human thought at the deepest level, at the most philosophical level, stretching across century and millennia, across religions, across philosophical systems. We are seeing this extraordinary development in this day and age in Vivekananda. Of course, he gets it entirely from Sri Ramakrishna and Ma Sharada. I pray to Sri Ramakrishna, Ma Sharada, Swami Vivekananda to bless all of us assembled here. May their blessings be showered on all of us, especially on the work of the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, which embodies that and. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Now, for next 15 minutes, if you have any questions, we'll take questions from audience.
How will you ask the question?
Please tell us your name, sir, and ask the question.
Namaste Swamiji. My name is Govind Sharma. My question is Aurobindo's integral yoga. Is it the extension or is it the commentary on the statements of Swami Vivekananda?
Both you can say. I am not an expert, sir, on Sri Aurobindo, and I know you are. I would refer you to the works of actually Swami Medhananda, Ayan Maharaj. He has studied Aurobindo in some depth, and he would agree with what you said, whether you regard it as an extension or an elaboration, a commentary on the Swami Vivekananda's this idea of one and the many are the same reality. Note that Aurobindo was deeply influenced by Sri Ramakrishna. He had a deep devotion to Sri Ramakrishna, deep devotion to Swami Vivekananda. That much I'll say. There are, yes.
My name is Ravi Kumar. Swami, when we look at this whole construct of body and mind, and we are looking at spirituality, we are trying to realize the Brahman through that realization has to occur in the mind.
Yes.
Somewhere the whole life is drawn by this mind and its construct of what life and this many as you called. So I mean, how do we overcome that? Because every time I try to meditate, I do anything, I somehow feel I am asking the thief to take me to the police station. Asking my mind to take me to Atman. How does one do this?
The basic idea of the question comes to us, it seems to be that we are trying to transcend body, transcend mind, and find some kind of a transcendent reality called Atman. Then you can sing like Shankaracharya, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. But all of this we are doing right now also. We are all of doing it in the mind. How can you use the mind to transcend the mind? This seems to be the question. As you put it very beautifully, that how can you ask the thief to take you to go to the police station? Thief will not go to the police station. How will the mind take you to Brahman? But Sri Ramakrishna says it can. The mind is part of what is called Maya. And Maya has these two sides, Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. It is not that the mind cannot take you to God. It can. Sri Krishna gives a lot of discussion about the different qualities of the mind, the Daivi and Asura qualities. So what troubles us is the Avidya Maya aspect of it, the Asuric qualities, which are embodied in the mind, which is displayed by the mind. But the same mind can also be a holy mind, can also be a highly purified and spiritual mind, which is what we are trying to do. And it can be done. Yes, and that spiritual mind, that holy mind, purified mind, even that is not the goal. That is still an instrument which will take us to the goal. Yes, this is what I wanted to say. But if you take this question a little deeper, the question might be in this sense. Sometimes it is put in Advaita, in the context of Advaita. When you're talking about going beyond the mind, you say, I am Brahman, if you have this realization. But this I am Brahman is also a vritti in the mind. Isn't it a thought in the mind? The answer is, if you have this question at all, answer will make sense if you have a question. So if you have this question, how can the mind realize something beyond the mind? How can the mind say Aham Brahmasmi? After all, it is the mind which is saying Aham Brahmasmi. Well, the answer is, it's quite possible. There's no harm in it. For example, when I say I am happy, what is actually saying it? The tongue, the voice box, the lungs, the entire vocal apparatus is saying I am happy. But is the tongue happy? Where is happiness? Happiness is in the mind. And the mind is using the tongue to speak and say, I am happy. When the tongue says, I am happy, it refers back to the mind, which cannot speak by itself. And that's perfectly all right. We understand that. Exactly like that, pure consciousness itself neither can nor needs enlightenment. The ignorance is in the mind. Enlightenment, the knowledge should come in the mind. Knowledge should come where there is ignorance, and knowledge will remove ignorance. So in the mind, ignorance is removed. Ignorance about my own nature is removed by knowledge arising in the mind about my own nature. And when that knowledge arises, Aham Brahmasmi, it doesn't refer to the mind. It arises in the mind, but it points back towards my real nature, which is Atman. That's how it works. That is the meaning of the Brahmakara vritti. Yes, should come here also.
Pranam Maharaj, I have few questions. I want to club that together. So
Tell us your name.
My name is Dem Malya.
Yes.
Can I put the questions in Bengali? It will be easier for me to put.
All right, I'll translate them.
Okay. So basically, I have, শুনেছি আপনার অনেক কথাই যে আপনি বলছেন যে if you go for service, if you are called to it, otherwise don't, because ultimate purpose is to realize God. এবং আমি যেটা বলছি যে এই যে বিইং কল্ড, হাউ ইন্টেন্সলি একজন কল্ড হবে সেটা এবং ভক্তি দুটোই ডিপেন্ড করছে তার ইমোশনাল, কতটা সেই পার্সনটা ইমোশনাল। তো অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম প্রেয়িং টু গড to purify my mind, আর কি আমরা করতে পারি to increase our emotional quotient or to be more emotional? Because
okay, let me see, the question seems a little scattered, so let me try to summarize what you have said so far. So Devmalya is saying that I have heard you say that about service, If you feel called to do service, then do it. If you don't feel called to if you don't feel called to do service, then don't do it, because ultimately the purpose is God realization. I don't think I've ever said that. It's like saying, I feel like meditating. If you feel like meditating, meditate. If you don't feel like meditating, then don't meditate. If you feel like studying Vedanta, study it. But if you don't feel like studying Vedanta, then don't study it. If you feel like doing bhakti to God, do it. If you don't feel like it, then don't do it. Never. That leads to disaster. What I feel like and I don't feel like, these are good indications of my samskaras, but that is no indication of what I should do in life. Once I have understood, I have heard everything, read everything, heard the teachers, and I have understood this is good. God realization is the highest goal. This is my purpose in life. I have understood this. Now, whatever my mind says and whatever it feels, I must now do sadhana. In spite of the feelings of my mind. Service is not an emotional, trying to satisfy my emotions. It's rather, it's a sadhana. It's meant for the good of others and for my own good. Whether I feel like it or I don't feel like it, I have to do it. And as we do it, you will feel like it. In fact, the joy of service, who am I to say more than Dr. Balasubramaniam and many of the others, you are all here, part of the SVYM. You know the joy of service, of doing something for others without asking for anything back. So you will feel like doing it when you start doing it. That's my answer to you.
Okay, suppose there is a person who is very much dedicated to one particular field of work. And he is doing lot of work for that field without thinking about money, but at the same time he is not thinking that his or her purpose is to realize God also. He is just doing it for the sake of doing it. Can that also lead to the same realization of God?
Yes, it can. At least it can lead to a lot of development in spiritual life. Whenever we do anything with a lot of intensity and without any selfish motive. I'll give you one example. This is from Calcutta. I was in charge of one of our colleges at that time, and Calcutta University had called a meeting. I went to the meeting as a representative of our college, Ramakrishna Mission Shikhon Mandir, and there were principals and teacher in charge from different colleges in that meeting. One gentleman I still remember, I don't know his name, I never met him again. He said, he has not married, does not have children, he's a professor, he's a lecturer in a college. He said, it is my philosophy that I just want to do things for others, for the institution. I don't want anything back. So I always tell my principal, sir, I am ready for any kind of job. So today is a holiday, nobody is available. He told me, you go to this meeting as representative of the college. Like this, and he says, he told me he donates more than 50% of his salary to students in his class or in the college. And he has been doing it for many years. So like this, he does many things. Then I asked him a question. And he told me he doesn't believe in God. So no question of God realization or anything, he doesn't believe in God. So then I asked him, what did you gain out of all this? He thought for a moment and he said, very heartfelt, he said, you know what, I never thought in that way what I gained out of all this. But I find I don't want anything in this world and I am happy. You see, that is a sign of Chitta Shuddhi. A strict Advaitin may say, after this meditation is required and then Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasana is required. But the real hard work, the unglamorous part of spiritual life, the cleaning of the dirt accumulated within, that is done by this hard, sacrificing lifestyle. I don't want anything, I am happy. Then, somebody from this side. Please tell us your name and ask the question.
Pranam, Swamiji. My name is Neeraj. So we emphasize always on serving the society. But one thing troubles me always, that I love plants and I keep planting more plants. So, but when I press any insecticides or spray them, I kill many other insects. That troubles me always, that I am not serving, in fact I am killing some. That is also Brahman. So how you take it?
What will you say to Arjuna? He massacred an entire army after hearing Bhagavad Gita. No, one must be a little tough-minded there. Yes, if it troubles you, try to look for some more organic way of dealing with the insects instead of spraying chemical pesticides. I don't know, you know better than me how to do it. But see, I know this lady, she went in America, Vipassana meditation, mindfulness, very popular. Here also it's popular, I think. So she called me in distress. I went to a Vipassana camp. I think they do 10-day meditation or something, several hours a day. And now I've come out, a wonderful camp. I said, wonderful, then why are you so disturbed? What is happening? I said, when I came out to my car to come back to my home from the Buddhist retreat, I found there was one mouse in the car. I have to give a little background. New York, there are more mice than human beings. They say, if you could say more rats than human beings there are in New York. So it's not surprising that there was a mouse in the car. I said, all right, what did you do? So I got a tissue. She said, I got a tissue. I caught hold of the mouse and threw it out of the car. It was snowing outside. And I saw it struggling in the snow. And then I came out, but I cannot forget Swami, that poor mouse. I threw it out and she started crying. And it struggled in the snow and it died and froze to death. What will happen? I said, this is the result of your 10-day meditation. So weak is our peace of mind. Then should we kill the mouse? How you will dispose of the mouse is your business. The problem is that Sri Ramakrishna showed it. That once Balaram was thinking that he kills bed bugs or something, mosquito curtain, and the mosquitoes. So he is a Vaishnava and very tender-hearted towards living beings. He was worried. He came to Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna was at that time that bed bugs. He was killing the bed bugs, and Balaram had never seen him do that. Insects, Sri Ramakrishna himself is killing. And that was the answer to his question. Ultimately, what is your goal? Is it to save an insect or a mouse? Is that the purpose of life? That insect and mouse will die anyway. We are a part of this whole process of nature, Prakriti, and it is full of death, full of suffering. The way is to find a way out of suffering. How many insects will you save? How many mice will you save? Even how many human beings will you save? You cannot, because we are not the master of life and death. Only that one is the master of life and death. Even the most non-violent community in the world is the Jainism. There also the understanding is that the best way to stop violence is to attain what they call kevala, the state of freedom. Practice as much non-violence as you can, still you cannot prevent violence. As long as you are living in this body, violence is inevitable. The way is to attain freedom from limited existence. It's good that you have such a tender mind, but one must find a way of, I don't know, you know better. Can I save the lives of insects without spraying insecticide and yet save the plants? Is it possible? Maybe some organic way of doing it, I don't know. In some cases, it may not be possible also. Yes.
Good morning, sir. My name is Spurti. So, from what I gather, the whole goal of spirituality is to move beyond the reality as we see around us. But
wait. Whole goal of spirituality, they make it sound like some delusional.
No, it's to understand that there is a reality beyond.
It is that distinction between descriptive metaphysics and revisionary metaphysics. That this is not the ultimate reality. That there is some deeper reality. So it is actually a search for reality. There is one book, Vedanta, Science of Reality. You would have changed it into Vedanta, Science of Unreality. No, it's a search for reality. Yeah.
So it's that. But when you have to be actively of service to someone or be, optimistic in helping them in the right way, you have to understand the dearth of their reality. You have to understand the problem that they're going through, the level at which they're experiencing it.
Absolutely.
So you have to understand their reality, but at the same time remember that there is a reality beyond. So what is the way to...
But that is the only way you can help. A doctor understands disease and pain and understands health and cure for the pain, understands the reality of the patient and the reality beyond which the patient can reach after being cured. Then only the doctor can help. The psychiatrist understands the delusional confusion and sorrow and suffering of the person, say a schizophrenic patient, and understands beyond that is a trouble-free world. Actually, there is no such trouble. It's only in the mind of the patient. Only when the psychiatrist understands that, then only the psychiatrist can help that patient. The spiritual teacher understands our problem. Sarvam dukkham. The Buddha understood this. Is there a way out of this dukkha? And the Buddha found it. There is nirvana. And there is a way of reaching it. So only when you understand the situation of the patient and you understand a transcendent reality, you can help. Whether it is health, Shankaracharya says in his introduction to the Mandukya Karika, he says it is exactly like illness. Attainment of health. Health is our natural state. Illness is a superimposition. And when we know that natural state, we can go beyond illness and attain health. And then he says, what is health? He says, Advaita bhava eva prayojanam. For him, health is, he calls it swasthyam, being centered in our real nature. And what is that real nature? Non-duality. Yeah. There's
Pranam Swamiji.
yes.
So
Tell us your name.
yeah, my name is Sonali. So it's a continuation of the question she asked. So I am not able to place in this whole understanding, where does Bhakti Yoga come? Like Bhakti comes on its own, or like as we progress, or I mean, how do I place it? Like if I start from
The two questions. How do I place it and how does it come? Or where does it come in?
yeah,
Yeah.
does it come naturally?
Right. Bhakti, I tend to speak a little bit in the language of Advaita, more of a dry philosophical approach, but Bhakti Yoga is most important. Please sit. This sadhu in Uttarakhand, he was asked, he was known as a Kattar Advaiti, radical non-dualist. So somebody little mischievously asked, which is greater, Bhakti or Gyan? Is knowledge greater or devotion? Love is greater. Kaun badi hai, Bhakti or Gyan? Immediately that sadhu said, Bhakti badi hai, Bhakti is greater. So they were taken aback. Oh, Bhakti is greater, you are admitting it. Then what about Jnana? What about knowledge? He said, Jnana mein koi bada chota nahi hota hai. In Jnana there is no higher or lower. I found it a beautiful answer. I have the highest respect for Bhakti. It is always the highest. And in Jnana, no question of higher and lower. Where does Bhakti come in? Very, very important. Forget spirituality, philosophy, all that is higher. One common factor in human life, we are motivated, inspired and pulled not by ideas, by heart. Swami Vivekananda said, in a conflict between the head and the heart, always listen to the heart. Because heart as motive power, as the power. If you want to do anything, there will be obstacles, it will be a long struggle. And long struggle requires power and inspiration, not ideas. Ideas are very sort of powerless, helpless. If any blow comes, any difficulty comes, we first sacrifice our ideas. So, heart. I really want it. And therefore, this wanting, do we have that? We have it. The thing is, right now our wanting, our desire is flowing towards the world in 100 streams, in 1,000 streams. We want so many things in this world. And bhakti is taking that wanting, collecting it into one stream and pointing it towards God. Sri Ramakrishna would say that more piriyade, you have greed, lust. He said, don't even stop it. Turn it towards God. Turn it towards God. That wanting which is desire in the world, that same desire becomes bhakti towards God. When we stop that and focus it towards God. That's why, you see, why are we told again and again, give up desire, give up desire. All religions tell us. Why? Because it's the same force. With great force we are rushing out towards the world. That force is spent. Bhakti will not be strong or will not feel real. When you stop that, direct it towards God, bhakti becomes very powerful. Bhakti is very useful, very powerful. I will go so far. From an Advaitic Vedantic perspective I am speaking, classical Advaitic perspective I am speaking. Bhakti is enough to take you to God realization. You need not even come to Advaita. If you come to Advaita, you have to take the help of Bhakti. This is understood in classical Advaita Vedanta. See, the reason, the way, why they say, the sadhus there, see, they speak in Dehati Hindi, like the Hindi of villages. So, people may not give them much importance. But the insight they have into human nature, especially into spiritual life, unparalleled. For example, Bhakti and Jnana. This little insight, see how powerful it is. I'll tell you in Hindi first and then I'll translate. कामना बुद्धि में नहीं रहती है, कामना प्राण में रहती है. Desire is not intellectual. Desire is from the heart. Advaita Vedanta, at least in the beginning, it starts here. We are reading, arguing, understanding, all at this level. I may understand many things, but I will not feel the urge to do it or follow it if the heart doesn't want it. So all this understanding, logic will clear up lot of doubts, we'll get lot of clarity in the mind, which is good, it should be done. But it will not change what is in the heart, at least not quickly. Therefore, bhakti at the level of the heart, using the emotions and directing it towards God, clears up this problem of desire. Otherwise, what will happen is, understanding will go one way and the heart will, desire will go another way. That's why he says that bhakti is very necessary. Those who are on the path of jnana, beginners on the path of jnana, bhakti is most necessary. I will not tell the name. One of our Swamis complained, you see, I have this new brahmachari, very brilliant person. And I tell him, if this work is going on, please come and help in the ashram. No, I will sit and meditate and realize Brahman. I have come here for Aham Brahmasmi. Where do you get such ideas? YouTube, Sarvapriyanandaji. And then that Swami said, with so much difficulty I had to go through your lectures where all you have mentioned bhakti and karma yoga and make the note and send the link to that brahmachari. Please watch. Yes, bhakti is most useful for jnana, most useful. Yes.
Namaste. My name is Guru Ananda. We have observed Sri Ramakrishna always said, spend time with sadhus and sants, because you will observe their motto of selfless service and nishkama karma. So India is being a land of sadhus and sants. So there is always a potential for people to do more social service by interacting with sadhus and sants. What do you see, how do you accelerate this so that India becomes the spiritual center and serving society, as you said? How do we accelerate this or make it happen, because of the sants and sadhus are more in India?
I think the answer is right behind you. If you look, the Swami Vivekananda youth movement sitting right there, this is the effect of Vivekananda. Sister Nivedita says, all these teachings, it's not that they would not have been there, they would have been the rare possessions of a few scholars and pandits. But he made it lucid, poetic, inspiring, and brought it into the hearts of people. And people are now translating it into service. I mean, it's a fact that so many monks wandering around and taking bhiksha and teaching metaphysics, Swami Vivekananda says, what madness is this? In a society which is degenerate, colonized, starving, superstitious, here is the manpower, an idealistic group of people who can actually transform society. So he gave that extra impulse needed to an already spiritual group, but he gave that extra impulse needed to transform this. They will attain their God realization. They want, all the sadhus and monks, they want God realization, Brahmagyan. You will attain. He assures us, surely you will attain. But do it in this way. It will be of great benefit to society and it will accelerate your spiritual progress, not delay it. It will accelerate. I will tell you one thing. So what I'm saying here is, just the existence of sadhu sant may not be enough. The sadhu sant, you have to add some little change in their philosophy, or little extension, upgrade, 2.0, little upgrade. So you have to download that upgrade and upgrade the app with the new updates. So the new update works in this way. A friend of mine who is a monk of our order, he had a very high-paying job in Oracle in United States. He gave it all up, came here. One day, I was talking with him, and he said, when I came here, Atmano mokshartham jagathitaya, for the welfare of the world and for self-liberation. The self-liberation, spiritual realization, I did not understand much of it, but I was really inspired. I will sacrifice my life, I'll give my life for the welfare of others. I don't want anything more. That was my inspiration. And after 20 years of monastic life, I have realized without a serious spiritual life, one really cannot do much for others. I told him, oh, this is what you think. I thought the opposite. From my childhood, I read Vivekananda's books and all. Parents were devotees. God realization is the goal of human life. And it inspired me. God exists. We can realize God. Then we should do this. What else we should do in life? But there also they add Jagat Hitaya, Ramakrishna Mission, a school, college, hospital. So I thought, all right, it is extra, not bad, good work. What is the harm? Yeah, I will do some service. But really spiritual life, God realization, that's my goal, and I will do that. After 20 years, more than 20 years monastic life, I come to realize that a private spirituality is not very spiritual. Same problem. In our dream of becoming gods, we forget to be human. So now notice, these two monks, I and my friend, we came from two directions. Spiritual life, social work, it's some kind of social service they are doing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Good, not bad. And that person came from that I will do something for people and I don't want anything in return. So I'm going to become a monk, give up my life for the welfare of everybody. And that meditation, Vedanta, not bad. I will take a look when it comes. But now both of us have realized it is the same thing and one does not work well without the other. And what realization we have had, it is true for not only monks, it is true for anybody who is trying to lead an ideal life and rise in spiritual life and be of use to others. It is true of all the volunteers and all the workers here in the SVYM. One more, I'll just add. This comes out of my talk with Dr. Balasubramaniam. You talked about transforming India. So here, a little bit of help from policy makers, government and all is good. Nothing wrong in it. Spirituality has always been helped by the Raja Shakti in ancient times. That's how Buddhism spread. At one time, Karnataka Jainism was so popular. Kings were Jains here. And so, there are very good new initiatives which are inspired by ideas of Karma Yoga and Vedanta. Dr. Balasubramaniam knows much more about this, and there are already these things at a low-key level, these are active. These are transformational forces which they are setting into motion in this society, which will keep on working for generations to come, and they will transform society, I have no doubt about it. A very important point you asked. Should we wrap it up now? Yes. All right, we have not taken questions from that end, so that's the person, I've seen the most distant person who raised his hand, the gentleman there who has raised his hand with a beard. No, you raised your hand later. So we should give a mic there. Just come out here so they can take a mic to you. Tell us your name and ask the question, that will be the last question.
Namaskaram, Swamiji. It was a perfectly eloquent speech, and I'm.
What's your name?
I'm Sudarshan.
Sudarshan.
And my question is, it's very practical and relevant to me. That should we, in our lives of following our jobs and careers, etc., and education, we always tend to think that it is because for our family that we're doing all of this. But Karma Yoga says that you have to think of God and do your offerings to God. But when we are coming in a family, we love our parents, our family. So should we dedicate our love to these people and do our actions for them or for God?
For God. Loving and doing it for myself and my people. That's instinctive. Nobody has to be told to do that. That comes from our biology itself. I remember as I was reading Richard Dawkins' Selfish Gene once. I was a brahmacharya there. Fascinated. I saw the connection between why monks don't marry, why monks don't have children, and then you say you love everybody equally. Richard Dawkins shows that we love ourselves most of all. And then we love those who are biologically closest to us, your own children, little less the children of your brothers and sisters, little less the children of your cousins. So you see, genetically further and further away, less the love is. Genetically closer to you, more love is. Not only that, he also explains why sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, you love your children more than yourself. And he gives a very materialistic explanation of it. He said, really, the prime motivators are our genes. They want to survive. The only way they will survive if your children survive. So they make you love your children and sacrifice yourself for your children because they are in your children. So they will go on. So they are like little monsters. They will keep on using. We are vehicles for those genes. The genes are selfish. Now I realized if you don't have close relatives, so don't marry, don't have children, don't keep contact with your near and close family and relatives, then what happens is, according to Richard Dawkins, automatically your affection becomes neutral and spread over everybody. There is no biological pull towards one person or one family. All this I understood as a brahmachari in a train. I was reading in India, so traveling from one place to another. True. So that is natural. Our love for our parents and near and dear ones is natural. Now, should we not do that? We cannot stop it. What Karma Yoga does is that see God in your parents, see God in husband, wife, children, grandchildren, and in neighbors and in the community members, and serve them. Because I am serving God in this way. And that will be a much wiser way of serving your own parents also. So, people come and go. This is the fact of life. People change. But if you see God in all of them and serving them, God is constant. So your love and service, your love actually will be deeper and wiser. You are not loving a particular biological creature. You are loving the divinity in that being. They will also feel it, a pure kind of love. So yes, you must do your duty to your parents. Who is saying this? Who did not do the duty to parents? No, it is allowed in our society. For the sake of God realization, you can give up, but not for anything else. Do your duty to your parents, but as a sadhana. This is higher than doing duty. That it is karma yoga. I love the God within you, which is within me and everybody else. That becomes a really great spiritual practice. Thank you so much. Thank you. Come here.
Loud enough. Okay. I just wanted to reflect on one thing that you told with respect to your friend from Oracle and then your conversation with this. This is something that echoes quite frequently within a service organization, indulged, so-called mixing service and spirituality.
Yes.
What happens is most of the time, people who enter into the system have come into as some as volunteers, but many as employees also. And when it comes, the element of volunteerism is already embedded within them, but at the same time, service actually boosts their ego. Okay, so automatically they feel hardened when it comes to saying that you have to work on a Sunday also, because somebody who is working in Oracle is willing to come and compromise on a Sunday to come and serve here. And these people will have to work invariably because they have to create a platform for them. So this invariably brings a conflict. How do you expect this sort of conflict within the persons who are actually working for voluntary work, doing service, getting this sort of thought processes? How do you condone it or curtail it?
The entire answer is with Dr. Subramaniam, Bal Subramaniam, who is working on this very thing now, from Karmachari to Karma Yogi. Yeah, it's a huge project, and with a lot of thought has gone into it, and I think he will tell you more about it as the time comes. No, really, that it's, unless it is confidential, I don't know, but yeah, but exactly that, karmachari to karma yogi.
Thank you, Swamiji, for the illuminating talk. Now it's time for felicitation. I request Dr. R. Balasubramaniam, Dr. M. A. Balasubramaniam, and Dr. Sitaram sir to felicitate Swamiji.
Saying that he invited me to this program, but I'm so inspired by the work that you are all doing, and at the source, they were all there at the source of foundation of SVYM. So when he goes to, so I was just this morning I was talking with Dr. Balasubramaniam, and I said, when you next go to New York, you must come and tell us in the Vedanta Society of New York about the work of SVYM.
And now I request Dr. Sitaram sir to share his thoughts and also render a vote of thanks.
Param Pujya Nityastananji, Param Pujya Sarvapriyanandaji, all the revered monks gracing this occasion, all the well-wishers and colleagues. It's a difficult task, but I'm sure all of us were immersed in a fantastic hour and a half of contemplation and enlightening thoughts. Yada kinchit gnoham gaja iva madandha samabhavam tada sarvagnosmityabhavad avaliptam mama manaha yada kinchit buddhajana sakashad avagatam tadha mudhosmiti jvara iva mado me vyapagataha. So says Shloka. When we read a little bit, try to understand small things, little bit from here and there, we think we know a lot. And then we feel that we are sarvagnas. But these are occasions when we touch and try to learn from the real sarvagnas. And that feeling disappears as would fever when we give paracetamol. I think that is what I felt. We travel a lot. M.A. Balu also does this. Earlier, we used to work on our laptops when we would travel, but then I developed some problems. I had some vertigo and flickering lights wouldn't agree, and so I had to stop that. And I switched over to listening. And even now, when I travel from Mysore to Sargur every 2 days, I listen to lectures, and must confess, Swami Sarvapriyanandaji's lectures are my favorites. So they are really fantastic, and I'm sure all of you would have gained a lot of insights about a lot of things, and a lot of questions and doubts would have got clarified through that sort of a medium. Ivattin divasa I'll just also add a little bit in Kannada. One of the requests was that I sum it up, and I promise that I'll do it quickly. ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರು ಪ್ರಾರಂಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಸ್ವಾರಸ್ಯಕರವಾದಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಿಚಾರ ಹೇಳಿದರು. ನ್ಯೂಯಾರ್ಕಿನ ಜನ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರನ್ನು ಗಬಕ್ಕಂತ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರು ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕೆ ದೇ ಆರ್ ವೆರಿ ಎಂಟರ್ಪ್ರೈಸಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗೆ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಂತಹ ವಿಶೇಷತೆಯನ್ನು ಗುರುತಿಸಿ ನ್ಯೂಯಾರ್ಕ್ನವರು ಮೊದಲು ಅವರನ್ನು ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಮಗಿದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರು ಕೆಲವು ಬುದ್ಧಿವಂತರಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ರು, ಆ ಬುದ್ಧಿವಂತರು ಉಳಿದವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಅದು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೂ ಕೂಡ ಅನ್ವಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಭಾವಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಸರ್ವಪ್ರಿಯಾನಂದಜಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಏನಾರು ಅವರ ಭಾಷಣವನ್ನು ಕೇಳಬಹುದಾ ಅಂತ. ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅ ಲಕ್ಕಿ ಪ್ರಿವಿಲೇಜ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕುಡ್ get this going. So we have listened to Swami Sarvapriyanandaji, and I'm sure we will go back and take at least some of these messages into our own lives in practice and spread it in our areas. Swamiji ಅವರು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ನಿವೇದಿತಾ ಅವರ ಕೆಲವು ವಾಕ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಉದಾಹರಣೆಯಾಗಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಕೆಲವು ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ರು. ಮತ್ತು ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದಂಥದ್ದು ಅವರಿಗೆ ಆದಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅನುಭವ. ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಗಾಡ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಫರ್ಗಾಟ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಅನ್ನೋಂಥ ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಪ್ರಬಲವಾದಂಥ ವಾಕ್ಯವನ್ನು ಅವರು ಕೋಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ದೇವರಿನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ತಲೆ ಕೆಡಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಮನುಷ್ಯತ್ವವನ್ನೇ ನಾವು ಮರ್ತು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಅನುಭವ ಕಥನದ ಮೂಲಕ ನಮಗೆ ಜ್ಞಾಪಿಸಿ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಮೂಲ ಮಂತ್ರ ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ರತಿಬಿಂಬಿಸಿದರು. ದೇವರಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಮನುಷ್ಯತ್ವ ಇದೆ, ಈ ಎರಡರ ಸಮನ್ವಯವನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರು ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದರು, ಅವರ ಒಂದು ತತ್ವಜ್ಞಾನದ ಒಂದು ವಿಚಾರ ಮಂಡನೆಯನ್ನು ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ವಿವರಿಸಿದರು. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದವ್ರು ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ ಹೈಲೈಟೆಡ್ ದಿ ರೋಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಫಿಲಾಸಫೀಸ್. ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಈ ತ್ರಿವೇಣಿ ಸಂಗಮ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ನಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಹೇಗೆ ಈ ಮೂರೂ ತತ್ವ ವಿಚಾರಧಾರೆಗೆ ತನ್ನ ಪೋಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಭಾರತದ ಎಲ್ಲ ದರ್ಶನಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಗಳ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಷನ್ ಅಂತೇನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಅದರ ಒಂದು ಇವಲ್ಯೂಷನನ್ನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಪ್ಯೂರ್ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಚಾರ್ವಾಕ ದರ್ಶನದಿಂದ ಅದ್ವೈತ ದರ್ಶನದವರೆಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂತು, ಆ ಅದ್ವೈತ ದರ್ಶನವನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರು ಹೇಗೆ ಮತ್ತಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಷ್ಕರಿಸಿದ್ರು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದರು. ಕೇವಲ ನಾನೇ ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ಅನ್ನೋದಲ್ಲದೆ ಅದೂ ಇದೆ ಇದೂ ಇದೆ, ಅವೆರಡರ ಸಮನ್ವಯವನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದರು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ರು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರು ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿದರು. ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಸರಳ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರು ನಮಗೆ ಹೇಳಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಪ್ರಬಲವಾದಂತಹ ವಾಕ್ಯ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು, ನಾನು ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ದ ಗೋಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುಯಾಲಿಟಿ should not be societal reforms. It should be the other way around. The goal of society should be attaining spirituality. ನಾವು ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮಿಕತೆಯ ಅಥವಾ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕತೆಯ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಸಮಾಜ ಸುಧಾರಣೆಗೆ ಅಂತ ಬಳಸೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಅದರ ಉದ್ದೇಶವಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಸಮಾಜದ ಗುರಿ ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮಿಕತೆ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸುಧಾರಣೆಗಳು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮಿಕತೆ ಕಡೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಬೇಕು. ಆ ಎಲ್ಲದರ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನವನ್ನು ನಾನಿಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರು ಹೇಳಿದರು. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅ ರಿಯಲ್ ಟ್ರೂ ಇನ್ಸೈಟ್ ಇಂಟು ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಓನ್ ಥಾಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸಸ್. ಕೆಲವು ಸರ್ತಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಆಲೋಚನೆಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಹೇಗೆ ಕಣ್ಣು ತನ್ನನ್ನು ತಾನೇ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗಲ್ವೋ, ಹಾಗೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ನಾವೇ ವೀಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಲವು ಸರ್ತಿ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಆಗ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಕನ್ನಡಿಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ಸಹಕಾರ ಕೊಡ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗೆ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದಿನ ನಮಗೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಹೊಸ ವಿಷಯಗಳು, ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಹಳೆಯ ವಿಚಾರಗಳು ಹೊಸ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ, ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯೂ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ old things that we thought we knew in a new light. I think we had the great privilege of listening to Swami Sarvapriyanandaji and get this advantage. On behalf of all the people who have gathered here, on behalf of our organization, Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, I offer my heartfelt pranams to Swamiji for this great opportunity that you have created, and we hope that your blessings will continue to guide us in physical form and in spirit. So thank you very much for all the presence and support, Swami. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆದದ್ದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಇದು ನಮಗೆ ಎರಡನೇ ಮನೆ ಥರನೇ. ಸೊ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ನಿತ್ಯಸ್ಥಾನಂದಜಿ ಮಹಾರಾಜ್ ನಮಗೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಅವಕಾಶವನ್ನು ಕಲ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ನಮಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಬಹಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ಅವಕಾಶವನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಸೊ ಆನ್ ಬಿಹಾಫ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಹೂ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಗ್ಯಾದರ್ಡ್ ಹಿಯರ್, ಮೈ ಸಿನ್ಸಿಯರ್ ಪ್ರಣಾಮ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ನಿತ್ಯಸ್ಥಾನಂದಜಿ ಫಾರ್ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್. And I hope this also will continue for the days to come. Thank you very much, Swamiji. So I also thank all the senior monks who have graced the occasion, and their presence has really inspired us and made this program more complete for us. There are some people whose mere presence inspires, Swamiji. So thank you very much for being with us. And I also thank all the people who have gathered and made this program so successful, and all the people who asked their questions. I think that also stimulated a lot of thought, and the answers that Swamiji gave were also quite illuminating, and maybe they also triggered more questions, which is what the purpose is. It's not just about answers. More questions will lead us to more answers. So thank you very much again on behalf of all the organizers. Thank you.
ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಂದುವರಿಯುತ್ತೆ.